wondered what makes your favorite Carnatic vocalist sound good? What makes them a good singer? God's gift? Sure, okay, but what if we could look into their throat? What if we could break down what exactly it is they're doing that gives them that amazing sound? Today we're going to break down the voice of some of our most favorite legendary Carnatic vocalists, and I hope to do this more often. Um, as a note, in this video, I am going to be using short clips of videos from YouTube. This is under the Fair Use Act, and it is primarily educational and for commentary. So without further ado, let's begin. I am using my favorite spectrogram software. This is not sponsored. I use this for work. And what that's going to do is that's going to take the audio waveform from whatever audio we choose. In this case, I am listening to MS singing with just a tambura. I think there is Radha Vishwanathan in some of these, but we'll find a place where she's not singing, and it'll give us the waveform of her voice. It is going to give us the waveform of the tambura and other things as well. But again, like I said, we can always um, look at only what we need to look at. And so our spectrogram here, you'll see when I hit play and hit record, but what it's going to do is it's going to give us the pitch or the fundamental frequency or the actual frequency at which her vocal cords are vibrating in light blue. Typically her voice, because she sings at like G, G sharp, A, is going to be somewhere in this range at around 200 hertz. As you can probably tell, the frequency is over here. The piano is a bit of a giveaway. It is also going to show us the overtones in her voice or the filters or the higher or what is happening higher up in the vocal tract that is giving her voice that ringing sound. And at any given point, we can also see the spectrum or the breakdown of frequencies within the snapshot of that moment in her voice. Let's take a look. I am really excited to go into MS's voice because she has such a classic voice, and also I've heard so many things about her singing in chest voice or head voice or whatnot, and but before I get ahead of myself, let's go. So I want to try to find on this Kacheri recording, I want to try to find something where it's a shlokam just so that we know that she's the only one singing. Let's go here. I have no idea what's going to come on when we hit play. We'll find out. I'm going to hit record on my spectrogram and I'm going to hit play over here.
लोकोद्धारणकारणं नरतनं काञ्चीसुपीठस्थितं कामाक्षी कामाक्षी करुणाविलासभरितम्.
I'm going to stop her here. Ah, Shankaravarnam. Okay, now let's go back and look at this. Let's see. So like I said, what is light blue over here is her singing. So this is where she was moving her notes as she sang. Everything above it is the overtones. From what I can tell, the light blue fuzz or the less blue fuzz, I suppose, the lower in magnitude, lower intensity fuzz over here is likely from the tambura, and everything else here. So this big prominent yellow, orange, red, all of these are the overtones in her voice. I want to play over here now just so we can get a sense for what we're looking at. So this is a good place to know what's fuzz or what's noise and what's not. Obviously, this is tambura, this is tambura, this is tambura. So we're going to ignore all of these overtones. This is interesting. This is a good way to tell if someone is sounding clear. So, clarity in voice is one of those things that you can actually see in a spectrogram. Notice how there's not any noise between these harmonics apart from the little bit of like blue fuzz we see from the tambura, which again, like I said, tambura. This is telling us that MS is not using a raspy or a hoarse voice. If you had to hear somebody sing with like a sore throat, a hoarse voice, or even if somebody's singing like death metal or like screaming, you would see a lot more of like distortion here. And incidentally, you can see all the distortion and like what a raspy sound would sound like because she cleared her throat here, so you can clearly see that this is not clear at all. There's no clarity to this, because she cleared her throat. It's not meant to be music. It's meant to be noise. Moving on.
काञ्ची सुपीठस्थितम्
One thing that stands out with MS's voice is that you can actually hear her even when she's doing an mm. Mms are typically a really soft sound. You don't hear it. It tends to be dampened because we're literally closing our mouth. So people on the outside don't often hear a lot of which I think is why a lot of singers fall into the trap of doing a oh when they're doing So kanchi, whatever that word was, I don't quite. So if I were to sing Shankara Bharanam versus a Shankara Bharanam, people do often go into the versus an because this may not be like an actual choice they make. It's just sort of a subconscious decision of I want to be heard. Um, but MS's is pretty audible. You can hear her and what we can tell here is that she has so many overtones. So the thing about music is meant to have more overtones than speech. Like it's more resonant than speech. That's how you know it's singing. And she has so many overtones even in her which is why we can hear it. So it's not a function of how loud you sing that it's a function of how many overtones you have in that So that's really more a sense of how much you're using your face and like the top of your mouth or the top of your jaw, anything in your face, your sinuses, the rest of your vocal tract. The more you use that, the more audible your and anything else will be. Um, so yeah, that's one thing. And finally, another.
कामाक्षी कामाक्षी करुणाविलासभरितम्
I'm pausing here again because if you notice, there's like a extra layer of overtones that have been added here. She's getting louder, but again, in her case, remember, she's not getting louder necessarily because she's pushing more or like putting more effort in. Like there's not necessarily anything happen at the level of the throat or even in breath. But there is more sound energy. How we know that? Because there is literally an extra overtone here. Coming back to earlier, she didn't really have this overtone in the beginning. And now that she's a little bit further in her victim, that's actually opened up. And what you can hear in this is something that is often called, so if you notice this highest overtone here is somewhere in like the 2000 hertz range. And it can go, so this is often called the singer's formant. A formant is basically like sort of a package or like mm, a little pocket or a little area of frequencies, a little like a band of frequencies, band is probably a better word, that all sort of lights up together. So it's one band of frequencies or one like little um, interval of frequencies that lights up together. And we see formants with different vowels. So like with different vowels that Emma sings, she has different formants, of course. Like I think she's doing like an E or something here, if I'm not wrong. I was wrong. She's doing an This formant over here, like this 2000 hertz, is more related to the space in the back of your throat. And that's often called the singer's formant because that is that particular characteristic, like ringing sound, the sound that actually carries forth. So, this is what makes us think that MS is singing in her, again, quote unquote, chest voice, even when she's going so high. And people go, how can she project so much when she's going high? It's because she is using that singer's formant. She's using that sort of space at the top of her jaw. And when you use that singer's formant, or when you use that particular jaw configuration or throat configuration, you can actually project much further. This is used in Western classical music as well. This is used in opera. This is used in pretty much all forms of like melodic music. Again, I probably wouldn't put it in like metal, screaming, rap, although I should probably find out a little bit more. I'm not sure. But I do know that it often occurs in like pop music, belting has a lot of the singer's formant. There's that, again, characteristic ringing sound that lets you hear it from really, really far away. This is probably, again, something that came from back when we didn't have amplification. When we were singing, like, you needed to be heard over the instruments that were playing with you. In our case, there's often a tambura like right there, right next to this person's voice at pretty much the same frequencies. So the only way you're getting heard is if the frequencies in your voice are not where's that tambura? Are not these frequencies. Notice how these are all fairly low frequency. You need more of those higher overtones in order to be heard over a tambura, or even over like a violin or a veena or anything, pretty much any concert instrument you take doesn't really go into this frequency range, and that's why the human voice is so amazing, and this is why MS is so characteristic with voices. She has that singer's formant. Cool, right?